Yeah, it's Bum Peeps 787 here today to talk about Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and specifically one fight in the game. In my opinion, Heart Gold and Soul Silver are some of the easiest games in the franchise. There's no sugarcoating that. No, they're not as brain dead and just sweep the game with one fucking Pokemon as Red and Blue, some of the easiest games of all time that make, and also some of the glitchiest games of all time that make the first fucking Fire Emblem look like a godsend in comparison. But I'll save the Red and Blue is one of the shittiest games ever discussion for a later time. In this video, I want to talk about Clair. Now, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, like I said, not the most difficult games at all. They are, in fact, really damn easy if you know what to abuse and when to abuse it. So, hardcore Nuzlockes tend to be fairly easy for the most part. There are some run killers, like Morty, if he is able to get past your normal types by things like Hypnosis and Dream Eater or Sucker Punch, because he has two Haunters, a Ghastly, and a Gengar, all of which have over base 100 special attack, something that is incredibly rare for that point in the game, with a base 80 Stab Shadow Ball. So, yeah, that's going to be fucking your team up if you're not prepared. However, there are plenty of normal types that you can get by that point in the game, and if you want to do that so badly, or if you want something to cheese Morty so badly, you can run an Umbreon, but in my opinion, you should wait until later in the game to determine what you want your Eevee to evolve into. People say, or Whitney is becoming less discussed about being a possible run killer because people have found out the route. I forgot whether it was 31 or 32 delay strategy, where you delayed until you get headbutt, and then you get both that route and the Azalea Town headbutt trees after getting Kenya the gift Spearow to get a guaranteed Heracross, because your only options for those encounter trees left are Apom and Heracross. You have two routes, you get one of each guaranteed. So people are starting to see Whitney as a joke, which he pretty much is, especially with Heracross, especially if that shit's fucking female. Bugsy is getting a bit more recognition as a run killer because his base 110 attack Scyther with focus energy and I believe a citrus berry. Yeah, if it gets up a focus energy, and you have to keep you have to keep crits in mind all the time, even without it. It constantly being able to switch out and not take attacks because it's the fastest thing on the field at that point. Yeah, it's gonna be difficult to beat because you need ironclad physical walls, which you don't have much of. But anyway, you have your on killers, and then you have your pushover gym leaders. Your pushover gym leaders include people like Faulkner, Whitney, Chuck, Jasmine, Price, the entirety of the Kanto gym leaders except Blue. There are a few fights in Heart Gold and Soul Silver that stand out as posing a slight bit of difficulty. Red, not extremely difficult, but does have a bit of things that he does have a few things he can do to make it a bit annoying to get past him. Same with Blue. The overall type balance on their teams, not having too many repeats of one type or another, makes it to where they're not nearly easily as cheesed as the Kanto gym leaders. And for the Johto Elite Four, you can really use their lack of Pokemon with good stats and the poorly built teams the first time around, but the rematches are actually pretty difficult, and that is where I failed my most recent Nuzlocke, because I kept on choking and tunnel visioning the attempts before, but I finally made it to the rematches because I'm doing that before Red, and I failed miserably. So those fights do pose some difficulty, although I will admit I did play not the greatest. So, Johto Elite Four, Red, Blue, or specifically the rematches for Johto Elite. Let me rephrase. Let me restart that. The Johto Elite Four on the rematches only. Red, Blue, Morty, Bugsy, and Clair. Those are the major possible run killers, but Clair, in my opinion, is the most dangerous out of them. And why is that? It may not seem like it at first, but Clair has one of the bulkiest teams while still posing a really scary offensive threat. Now, you look at the defenses of Pokemon like Dragonair and Kingdra, and you're like, oh, it's not too crazy until you realize, oh yeah, this isn't competitive. My Pokemon aren't going to be fully properly EV trained, most likely, for these specific threats, because I need the EVs in other areas for just general utility and capability throughout the playthrough in Nuzlocke. You can't just specialize every Pokemon specifically for every gym and then reset that, because Heart Gold Soul Silver, you don't get those special berries that undo EVs until really damn late in the game. I don't even know if they existed at that point even. So yeah, EVs aren't really a way to get around it. And sure, you can have a Pokemon deal with the Gyarados pretty easily, which is her lead. However, it still can do pretty major damage that can be irreparable with bite flinches. I don't know why it has Twister, but Twister can also flinch. Dragon Rage can be surprisingly threatening, not to kill a Pokemon itself, but to wear down your Pokemon for her Kingdra. Her Dragonairs with Stab Dragon Pulse don't do the most damage, but they still do a solid amount. And both of them spread Thunder Wave, making it increasingly difficult to outspeed any of her Pokemon, along with making it to where 1/4 of the time you can have a turn just completely taken away from you. And then you get to the major threat, the Kingdra. Now, unlike the Dragonairs, Kingdra doesn't have an ice weakness. So your Mamoswines, your Jinxes, they're not going to work. Especially Mamoswine, because Kingdra's also part water type. So this one Pokemon is often what makes people try to pivot so much. They try to bring a water absorb Pokemon, a shell armor Pokemon, a ghost type, and it's because of this one Kingdra. The moveset is Hydro Pump, Dragon Pulse, Hyper Beam, and Smokescreen. Now, Smokescreen doesn't seem like too big of an issue, unless you start missing a ton, in which case you'll want to switch out, but Kingdra can pressure switches because the fact that it has Sniper. And why is Sniper so important? Each time you switch out, you're letting your opponent possibly get a free hit, which means another chance for it to crit. And Sniper makes crit damage 3 times instead of 2 times because it's Gen 4. So a Kingdra firing off a 3 times boost in move, especially if it's a Dragon Pulse or Hydro Pump, which also has Stab, that is not going to be something any Pokemon is going to be wanting to tank, short of maybe Blissey, but I don't think you can get Blissey at that point, and even then, I wouldn't be shocked if it would struggle to take the move. So yeah, that is not a really good thing, just switching out, because Kingdra can just get a random crit. So you will always want a Shell Armormon, but you have so few options. Kingler, no special defense to speak of. The Kanto fossils, they just aren't available until post game. Marowak, weak to water and only available in Safari Zone. Lapras is really your only option, and that's a 50-50. It could also have water absorb, which can help with Kingdra, but you can still get crit by Dragon Pulse. So, yeah, Claire's Kingdra is kind of a bitch. And that doesn't even scratch the surface of it, because while Claire's Kingdra is a threat in and of itself enough already, the damage that her teammate that the other Pokemon do, the two Dragonairs and the Gyarados, along with the paralysis that the two Dragonairs spread, make the Kingdra even more difficult to deal with. That's before taking into account the fact that Kingdra not only has a citrus berry, but Claire also has multiple hyper potions, I believe 3, if not 2, which are extremely important because you'll want to take care of them. The best way that I've found to deal with Kingdra is have an Electrode in and just pray to not get crit, Screech, survive a hit, and then self-destruct. Because Electrode isn't going to be useful for much else, and you get a ton of solid damage off on Kingdra. However, that's most likely not going to kill because Electrode's attack is shit. So, Kingdra is extremely difficult, and a lot of that comes down to the fact that it does not have any really exploitable weaknesses. Now, what do I mean when I say exploitable? You will need a Dragon type move if you want to hit Kingdra super effectively, because Dragon is its only weakness. However, there are very few Pokemon that get Dragon type moves by that point in the game. You won't have Whirlpool to be able to get a Horsey from the Whirl Islands until after. Oh, wait. I'm stupid. You can, but at the same time, I don't believe you can get a Dragon Scale. Correct me if I'm wrong. And even then, since her Kingdra has Dragon Breath and Dragon Pulse instead of Dragon Breath, like your Kingdra will have, if you can even get Kingdra by that point, it's going to be more threatening. And the only other dragon types that you can get are Dratini and Dragonair. You may be thinking, oh, I can just Dragon Dance sweep. There are some issues with that. Sure, you get Dragon Rush, a great Dragon Stab, or a terrible Dragon move, but it's the best you have to deal with Kingdra at that point. It's only 75% accurate, though, and you don't get Dragon Dance, even on Dratini, not even Dragonair, until after the level cap. So that puts serious stints in any plan to try to Dragon Dance sweep with a Dragonair. Because of that, your strongest move is going to most likely come from a Pokemon that does not have any advantage against Kingdra. Because let's say that, oh, you would be fine with taking a Dragonair into the Clair fight anyway. Well, even then, you still wouldn't want to get the Dratini earlier on from the Goldenrod Game Corner, because the one in the Dragon's Den can have extreme speed, which can pull you through in really close fights where you may need a priority move to squeak out some damage. So that just takes away one more resource from you. With the lack of resources, and with the increased amount of chip damage throughout your entire team, Kingdra becomes even more threatening throughout the course of an entire game, because you are constantly losing opportunities to be able to threaten it. The only consistent way, at least in my experience, to fully play around the Kingdra is if you delay Union Cave specifically to the point where you are able to get a Lapras and get Shell Armor. If you don't get Shell Armor on Lapras, you're going to have to pray for no crits, or you're going to have a fast Lucky Champ Pokemon. but a lot of fast Pokemon aren't too incredibly bulky. And you also got to outspeed Kingdra in the first place, which base 85 may not seem that great, but for Heart Gold and Soul Silver, where most of the Pokemon in the game for wild encounters are really slow, base 85 is really good. So, Clair, yeah, she's pretty fucking scary. Not unbeatable by any means, but definitely not cheesable. The one, I won't say the one truly difficult fight, because there are a few other fights in Heart Gold and Soul Silver that have some difficulty, but definitely the most difficult fight and one of the most fun to play, ironically enough, because that stress that it gives you, it's like a rush of adrenaline. It makes so much go through your mind. You're thinking about all the possibilities, what you need to do to get past these situations. So it makes it really fun despite being really stressful at the same time. And it gives you that satisfaction, that euphoria when you finally win despite all the shit that you have to play around. Of course, you can just pray for no crits, but then you could get your entire team swept by a crit. So, your choice. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I just wanted to talk about Claire and Heart Gold Soul Silver for a second because I think that she is one of the most underrated gym leaders in terms of difficulty. Anyway, this has been Typhlosion77, and I'm out. Bye.